The year 1954. Godzilla just came out, the first nuclear power plant was built, and the Normandale Shopping Center first opened its doors to the public. Now, you probably are not familiar with that last one, but I promise you by the end of this video you will. It's quite a sad story of competition, urban decay, and tragedy. And in today's video, we'll take a deep dive into the history and the current state of the Normandale Shopping Center. Hello everybody, welcome to Lost Places. Today we'll be looking at the Normandale Shopping Center. What is, in my opinion, one of the greatest examples of what a state-of-the-art shopping complex looked like back in the 1950s. And it all started with these guys. Back in the early 50s, these men saw what the city of Montgomery really needed, and that would be a shopping center. So they decided to make that vision a reality, and then, together with Arnold Realty, began construction on a new 20-store shopping center in the Normandale district of town. Construction would begin on December 20th, 1952, and 3 years later, on September 10th, 1954, the Normandale Shopping Center would officially open. Tenants of the complex included Lee's Self-Service Drugs, Toyland, but it also would house 6 doctor's offices and 2 dentist offices. All of this was great for the residents, but 2 stores would stand out among the rest. The shopping center was anchored by a Quick Check grocery store and the first suburban Loveman's department store. Previously, if a suburban resident wanted to go to, let's say, Loveman's or any other department store, they would need to go to downtown Montgomery to get whatever they needed. But with the admin in Normandale, this was no longer the case. It may seem trivial now, but when this was built, suburban retail was uncommon. Truthfully, this complex was everything the city needed all in one place. All in the heart of the suburban sprawl that was popping up around downtown Montgomery. In fact, it became so popular that an open-air section of the mall was added in 1956. This section would be known as the Normandale Arcade. Along with the smaller stores on both sides of the arcade, a large W.T. Grant store capped the open-air section of the mall. Also, Woolworths would move to a bigger location in the center. This would make the total anchor store count at this time to 4. This is what I would consider Normandale in its prime. Now, it was the 1960s, and just as culture was evolving, so was retail. At this point, suburban shopping centers had evolved far from the humble beginnings like places like Normandale to massive shopping malls, and Montgomery would feel the effects of this pretty quick. The first threats of Normandale began 8 years following the addition of the Normandale Arcade. The year was 1963. That year, a new shopping mall was going to be erected about 2 miles away from Normandale. But due to financial issues, the completion was held off for a while. In fact, the developers of Normandale saw this coming. So, in 1964, they made an addition to the W.T. Grant building, adding an A&P grocery store, making the anchor store count up to 5. But that looming threat could not be held off for much longer. And by April of 1970, the nearby mall, Montgomery Mall, had its grand opening. Montgomery Mall did everything Normandale could do, but better. Montgomery had 50 stores, 2 massive anchor stores dwarfing the smaller anchor stores at nearby Normandale. And not only that, it was also an indoor mall, which made it way more convenient to Montgomery residents. I have a whole video on Montgomery Mall because it has actually also found itself closing later on for other reasons and is sat abandoned. And we have a good exploration on it in other videos, so I recommend checking that one out after that. But it's important for this video because it was a major threat to Normandale's popularity. 7 years following the opening of Montgomery Mall, a new mall would open. This mall would be known as the Eastdale Mall. And this would be the beginning of the downward spiral of Normandale. Traffic slowed down due to the competition, and Normandale was no longer considered by Montgomery residents as the new, unique shopping center that it was once considered as in the 50s. Now it was considered an older, outdated complex that was really inferior compared to the other malls. And by the next decade, it would become what we would today call a dead mall. It was now the 80s. Now, if the 70s were the generation that created the modern mall, then the 80s were definitely the generation that popularized it. Now, this was good news for Montgomery Mall and Eastdale Mall, but this was horrific news for Normandale. You see, just in the first years of the 80s, Loveman's was going through some financial troubles, and in 1981, they actually filed for bankruptcy, closing their location in the shopping center. Now, Loveman's was by far the lifeblood of the mall, and this caused a lot of other stores to close directly following it. Woolworth's would be the first to close, along with a few other anchor stores afterward. And because of this, the mall was losing funding. And on October 4th, 1995, tragedy would strike. Hurricane Opal would rock the shores of Florida that day. 27 people would die and over 300 homes would be destroyed. And the effects would go way beyond the Florida Panhandle. Wind speeds measured at the Montgomery Regional Airport were up to 90 miles an hour. Now, the airport was only 7 miles away from Normandale, and the effects of this damage were pretty bad. Significant damage was made to the Normandale Arcade, so it was decided that the arcade would permanently close and be fenced off to the public. After Opal, the original shopping strip would receive a glow-up, and at some point, a flea market would move into the former Loveman space. But with the arcade closed, it could still no longer compete with the other malls in the area. And with the new millennium coming up, though, many changes could be made to save the mall. It was now the early 2000s, and things were beginning to look promising for the mall. But in 2002, yet another competitor would open. This competitor would be known as the Shops at Eastchase, which, large, believe it or not, outdoor shopping mall. Now obviously, Normandale was no longer in the same league as any of the other surrounding malls at this point, as it had lackluster stores and a very outdated infrastructure. But Eastchase was the official nail in the coffin for Normandale. Because shortly after, the flea market would close, and later on, the Calhoun Foods would close, which was in the former Quick Check grocery store. 2007, a bingo hall called Jackpot moved into the former W.T. Grant space, along with a furniture store in the A&P space, both of which closed shortly after. But we will look inside of this building later in the video, as it hasn't really been worked on or touched since then. Now, by the mid-2000s, malls as a whole concept were dying. Montgomery Mall permanently closed in 2008, and Eastdale became a dead mall. The only strong mall in the Montgomery area was Eastchase. Through all of this, the arcade had been sitting abandoned since Opal, untouched and open to the elements. And the former Loveman store was now open to vandals and deterioration. In 2009, it was reported that a potential buyer named Joseph G. Arnon planned a large-scale renovation of the historic property, but these plans would end up falling through. By 2018, nothing had really changed to the property, and it was decided that the arcade buildings would be demolished, leaving a gaping hole in the Normandale property. By this time, the remaining buildings were in awful condition, sitting in the elements. Normandale was now an eyesore. YouTuber Southern Urbex documented the inside of the Loveman's building in 2020, and you could truly see how bad the building had become, as the floors were falling in and the escalators were rusting through and looking honestly apocalyptic. Now, unfortunately, we did not get inside of the Loveman's because in 2025, something happened. The original portion of the shopping center building had been gutted, and now it is ready for new tenants. Meanwhile, the southern half, the former W.T. Grant store, has been untouched still, sitting abandoned. And there's still a large concrete slab where the arcade formerly was. Now, they did paint the front end in a nice blue color, making it very appealing to new tenants, and hopefully these renovation plans will help revitalize the mall and make it more desirable. But only time will tell. But until then, let's look what it looks like in the present. Abandoned. So without further ado, let's have a look. But before that, I just wanted to say thank you. Today is May 4th, 2026, and 2 years ago today, I started this channel. And now we're almost at 1,000 subscribers, and I just want to thank you guys. I could not have done it without you guys. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this footage that we filmed back in November of Normandale and the W.T. Grant building as it stands today.
So this was a store of some kind that closed at a time. Yeah, I don't know much about this in case you didn't know. We can get in. I don't know if we'll be going in today, but I don't see any no trespassing signs, so that's another thing. People have been dumping their garbage. Just gonna get a little view inside. Look at the old drop ceilings and stuff. This is insane. Floor tiles are crumbling. I wonder why they kept this. We're going to the back rooms. Look at these floors. They still have mayonnaise. I do not know why I pronounce it like that. Mayonnaise. Whoa, look at this. These are the bathrooms. Bro, I would never have known any of this was here. Best thing to hold on to. Is that for a fax machine? This is where the business was done. Janitor's closet. Men's restroom. Doesn't want to open. I'm not going in there, but so this looks like this was some. So that's talking about bingo.
Yeah, I saw bingo sign in there earlier. Bingo.
Is this a bingo hall? Obviously, it was the store at some point. What's on the other? That's concerning. It's holding up that wall. That looks kind of new. There's a horrible parking lot, though. Let's get the walk around of the building like we usually do on the channel. around the building as we would usually do. Bro, this place is so bad. Jackpot? Is that like...
It's probably the bingo place.
Yeah. That looks so old. I guarantee this was like a grocery store before it was what it is today. Look at this parking lot. And there are the original doorways. Let's see what's over here. This is that other building. It's a different store. Can't really see it too well in there, but because it's a bit dark, but that's pretty cool. 777. What does that mean? Probably gambling.
Oh. Maybe.
This was one massive department store, though. Most likely it moved to Montgomery Mall, just down the road, which is also now abandoned. Video about that should be coming out in the next couple weeks or so. That'll be a good one. Over here is the other side of the building, which is in just as bad of a condition as the side we actually visited. There's moss growing in there. Oh gosh, I should not be putting my phone over that. I do not want to drop it in there. Bro. That is so bad. What happened in there? Look at this door. That is apocalyptic looking. There's this staircase right here that's just very jagged. Oh crap, if we're close to an airport. Well, there's a label scar up here. Oh. Oh gosh. So this is the outdoor corridor of the mall. And then this would have been the entrance into that department store. Yeah, it did collapse. We will be any sofa or mattress in town. Welcome to low prices. So over there was the Loveman's department store.
What are these tiles called?
Buildings used to have a lot more style back then.
So was this oak concrete?
I could probably just build this in Minecraft. And down there's another pathway into Doom. Anyway, we'll go around the front and end off this video. And I'm gonna get some drone shots. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one, and goodbye.